For thousands of years, humanity treated the 4-minute mile as a lethal threshold. Pushing the body to that limit was believed to be a fatal mistake. Medical professionals of the early 20th century warned that the human heart would physically rupture if forced to maintain that pace. This wasn't a soft target, it was a mechanical limit. Athletes ran against a clock the world's best doctors called a countdown to a coronary. It remained an accepted biological boundary for the entire human species. In May of 1954, Roger Bannister crossed the finish line at 3 minutes and 59.4 seconds, proving the medical consensus wrong. While Bannister's achievement was significant, the data recorded in the immediate aftermath suggests a much larger phenomenon. A mere 46 days later, the record was broken again by John Landy. Within the following year, 3 more runners reached the same sub-4-minute mark. Within 36 months, 16 different runners achieved what had been impossible for 2 millennia. This sudden cluster of performance across the globe suggests a variable was changed that had nothing to do with physical training. To find the cause of this spike, we have to isolate the physical variables. Did the human body change in the spring of 1954? This chart compares standard lung capacity with the leap in oxygen processing required to explain the record drops. The data shows no expansion. We see the same in bone density. The 1955 athlete's skeletal structure was identical to the previous decade. Every physical metric confirms that the human hardware remained exactly the same. Because physiology stayed constant, we have to eliminate biological evolution as the cause of this performance surge. If the body didn't change, then the correction must have occurred in the brain. This involves the central governor, a survival program forcing the body to fatigue when the brain perceives a lethal threat. Because the 4-minute mile was considered fatal, runners' brains acted as a restrictor, capping power output long before actual muscle failure. The moment Bannister survived, the threat assessment for every other elite runner changed. The brain stopped viewing the 4-minute mark as a death sentence. The limit wasn't in the lungs or the heart, it was a protective delay. Once the fear was removed, the body was finally permitted to use its existing capacity. This breakthrough functioned as a shared signal across the sport. Seeing proof of possibility disabled the internal restriction for everyone else. This is why 16 different runners achieved the same impossible result in such rapid succession. It reveals that the barrier was never a physical wall, but a social agreement that it couldn't be done. These limits are collective illusions. They look like biological laws until one person provides enough evidence to make them collapse. This shift in human potential isn't confined to the track. Most of us are operating against our own version of a 4-minute mile, areas in our work or lives where we believe we've reached an absolute ceiling. But we must distinguish between an actual law of physics and a survival setting we've inherited from our environment. If your hardware is capable, but your output has stalled, the obstacle is likely internal. To bypass the impossible, you don't need to change what you are. You need to recalibrate the software that tells you what you can't do. In the early 1950s, the world's leading physiologists agreed on a specific limit. Running a mile in under 4 minutes was a biological impossibility. Medical journals of the era published dire warnings. Experts claimed that a human heart pushed past this specific threshold of exertion would burst inside the runner's chest. Elite athletes spent years chasing the record on grass and cinder tracks. Time and again, the best runners on Earth hit a wall at 4 minutes and 1 second. For decades, the public and the scientific community viewed these repeated failures as evidence of a permanent law of human anatomy. On May 6, 1954, a 25-year-old medical student named Roger Bannister crossed a finish line in Oxford in 3 minutes and 59.4 seconds. He survived the race with his health intact. The achievement generated global headlines overnight. Within hours, sports commentators and physiologists had to retract decades of established medical theory. The real anomaly happened next. Just 46 days later, another runner beat Bannister's time. Within a single year, dozens of athletes achieved the same feat. Today, a sub-4-minute mile is a standard benchmark. You can watch teenagers reliably break this old medical limit at high school track meets across the country. Human anatomy remained static during the 1950s. The shift occurred in the mind. To understand this shift, we have to look away from the track and into the architecture of human cognition. Your brain acts as a highly defensive organ, building rigid protective shields based on what it perceives as safe. Your mind operates as a gatekeeper. It evaluates potential actions and immediately blocks anything it labels as a threat to your survival or social standing. This filter functions based on subjective belief, often ignoring actual capability or objective reality. Bannister's victory recalibrated the cognitive filter for every runner who followed. He offered the evidence required to make the impossible feel safe. When the mind stops categorizing a goal as a lethal threat, the physical body receives permission to execute the action. This cognitive architecture runs in the background of your life today, managing your ambitions and daily frustrations. You face your own 4-minute miles, such as launching a new business, pivoting to a new career, or chasing a lifelong dream. Your gatekeeper sabotages these attempts before they start by taking raw, irrational fear and dressing it up as practical logic. It presents current circumstances, a lack of capital or missing credentials, as unbreakable laws of physics to protect you from the risk of failure. The feeling of being stuck is a psychological trap masquerading as a material shortage. Real change begins when you stop pointing to your environment or upbringing as the source of your lack of momentum. Your mindset sets your absolute limits. Internal belief must precede external validation. Waiting for the rest of the world to give you permission to succeed ensures you will stay exactly where you are. Before you can change your reality, you must actively dismantle the invisible wall constructed inside your own head. Human potential is unleashed the moment you realize the cage door was never locked. So, what is truly holding you back?